The Ben Garcia show. Yeah. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like callus. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman.
What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making this a part of your day. However you are watching, however you are following, however you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or for free on the iHeartRadio app. You are streaming us there, or you are putting a face to the voice and you are watching on YouTube. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, tell me what you love about me, tell me what you hate about me. I read them all things alike. It's great to be back in this chair to talk all things sports. Let's get right into it. Let's talk some JJ McCarthy news, a little bit of the Phoenix Suns, other news going on in the NFL, and who knows what we will hit on this edition of the Ben Garcia Show. But before we get to anything major, let's start with our top story of today. So there's this narrative out there, and it's getting quite louder as the NFL draft continues to roll on. We are now in April. The NFL draft is basically here, just a few short weeks away. It is draft month. It is draft month. And there's smoke screens, there's stories, there's leaks. Everyone is throwing everything out there to throw other teams off for what they really want to do. What are the Cardinals going to do at number 4? What is the Commanders going to do at number 2? The Bears are going to stick and pick Caleb, but that's really all we know at this point until the NFL draft actually kicks off later this month. But here's a story that I'm just not buying. I'm not buying JJ McCarthy going number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders. I just don't get it. I don't buy it. And at number 2, I understand that his floor is higher than a lot of others, and his ceiling is not as high as others. But I'm not going to buy into this notion that since we saw Brock Purdy, who is obviously limited, had some of the issues Jimmy Garoppolo did, but was able to distribute that ball to effectively in numerous ways than one, able to hit Deebo Samuel in the seams, hit guys open when they are open, hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey, be able to dissect and read defenses. But I don't believe that that's where the NFL is pivoting to. I don't believe that the game that I love, that I've been watching for years on end, is now going to go from the dynamic playmaker who's a little rough around the edges that needs some sculpting to get to where he wants to go, i.e. Josh Allen, i.e. Patrick Mahomes, and turn completely the other direction and say, this guy's got a low floor. Sorry, this guy's got a high floor. This guy's got a low ceiling, but his bust potential isn't like the other guys who's a bit higher. I just don't buy that. I just don't buy that the Washington Commanders are going to pass up on other prospects such as Drake May and Jaden Daniels, both of which guys that even I have some questions about, but you cannot deny that the talent is there. Whether it's the arm strength, the legs, the mobility, the Josh Allen-like explosive arm, Patrick Mahomes-like explosive arms, that, yeah, they have question marks. Drake May, some accuracy issues. Josh Allen had those coming out of college. Jaden Daniels, does he have the ability to protect himself? Lamar Jackson had that coming out of college. He's a 2-time MVP. There's no way to me that NFL teams are going to start following the Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins path and say, we don't want to take a chance on an otherworldly talent that just needs some effective coaching, and say that that's what we're going to go towards. Not the crazy athletic, physical freak of nature. We're going to go safe with the high floor, low ceiling, and pass on a guy like Drake May. I just don't buy it. To me, there's zero chance the Washington Commanders take JJ McCarthy over the other guys who are just physically more talented and have all the tools and traits they need to be an effective and, dare I say, elite NFL quarterback at the next level. I'm not so sure JJ McCarthy does. And this is not a JJ McCarthy slander video. I was on the JJ McCarthy train long before everyone else was back in October because I saw it with JJ McCarthy. And it is a little Brock Purdy. And it is a little Kirk Cousins, where he doesn't have all the tangibles. But the intangibles are there for JJ McCarthy. But if you go ask JJ McCarthy to be a life preserver for a sinking organization over the last few years in the Washington Commanders, it will blow up in your face. It will blow up in your face. JJ McCarthy needs similarly what Brock Purdy needed. A good offense, a good head coach, an effective offensive-minded head coach with multiple weapons that can help guide him, i.e. Brock Purdy with Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. JJ McCarthy would not work with the Washington Commanders. That would be insanity to pick him there and expect him to be a life preserver for your sinking organization. You know where JJ McCarthy would work? The Minnesota Vikings. The best place for JJ McCarthy to land and to have success is not the Washington Commanders. He's not physically talented enough to carry that dysfunctional organization that has been dysfunctional for 40, 30 years now. If you have JJ McCarthy go to the Vikings, similar to Brock Purdy, he doesn't have to do everything. He's got a great offensive-minded head coach in Kevin O'Connell, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. Is this sound familiar? Is it ringing a bell? JJ McCarthy to the Washington Commanders would be a debacle for multiple reasons. So don't be silly, Washington. Don't take a guy who is physically limited but has a high floor. We've already seen that with you. It was Alex Smith. It didn't work out for you. Alex Smith, although some injuries got in the way, they were never a viable, competitive playoff team. Take a swing. Try to jack one over the fence. Go after Drake May. Go after the physically freak of nature that just needs some sculpting with some good coaching. Or even that in Jaden Daniels, who I have multiple questions about. But you can't deny the talent is there. JJ McCarthy works in Minnesota, works with Kevin O'Connell, works the Brock Purdy path, in which he'll have multiple weapons and an offensive-minded head coach. But you can't ask him to save your sinking organization. It won't work. I'm sorry, it just won't work. Here's my message to Suns fans who are now back on the bandwagon after the Phoenix Suns pummeled the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans again. They now have the tiebreaker over the New Orleans Pelicans, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. I know they beat them in New Orleans earlier in the year by 1,000,000 points. But this is just so classic Phoenix Suns. This is just classic Phoenix Suns. Get your hopes up just to drop you back down again. Here is my best advice that I can give to a Suns fan. Devin Booker is going for 50 currently against the New Orleans Pelicans, possibly more by the time this thing is recorded. Devin Booker is going to drop a 50-piece against New Orleans Pelicans. He owns the New Orleans Pelicans. Whether you're dating it back to the 2022 playoffs earlier in January, Devin Booker has just always had the New Orleans Pelicans number. Not sure why. Don't know if it dates all the way back to the Zion Williamson dunk at the end of the game to piss off everybody. But Devin Booker just owns that team. But here's my biggest advice to Suns fans. You should start treating the Phoenix Suns like we treat the Arizona Diamondbacks. We treat the Arizona Diamondbacks as if, oh man, they're fun to watch. They're talented. And we have no expectations. The Arizona Diamondbacks, we all just hope, make the playoffs and hopefully win a singular round. No expectations. It's exactly where it should be for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Just have fun with it. The Phoenix Suns are a roller coaster ride that just doesn't end. We are begrudgingly watching games. We are hate watching games because this team is so frustrating to watch. An SGA-less Oklahoma City Thunder team mollywops this team into next week. They sleepwalk through that game, a game in which they needed. And then the very next day, couple of days later, the Phoenix Suns pummel the Phoenix Suns pummel a couple of days later the New Orleans Pelicans. The Brandon Ingram-less New Orleans Pelicans. It just gets frustrating after a while. It does. It's hard for Suns fans alike to be able to watch this Suns team and just think night in and night out that they are going to continue to contribute. Trying to make sure Brandon Ingram wasn't on the floor tonight because I know he's been injured. Brandon Ingram, again, did not play tonight. Thought I did not see him on the court, but the OCD here is real. You like to make sure of things. But this Phoenix Suns team, my advice to Suns fans is don't fall back into the trap. Don't fall for it, Suns fans. Don't get right up on that horse and expect the good times to start rolling. Because this Suns team might very well, against the Cleveland Cavaliers, drop that game by 40. Because that's what this Suns team does. This Suns team is capable of huge, ginormous things. They can beat anyone on a night-in, night-out basis. Can they beat a team 4 times out of 7 in a span of 2 weeks? I'm not so sure they can. In fact, I would lean towards they can't. Because Devin Booker is dropping a 50-piece right now against New Orleans Pelicans, and still I'm left angry because where was this fire the other night against an SGA-less Oklahoma City Thunder team in which you needed that game to try to stay alive in the playoff race for the 6th seed? Don't fall for it, Suns fans. Don't fall for it. This team is infuriating. This team has so much to prove, but still it feels night in and night out that they don't think they do. There's too much redundancy in the offense, and even in which they had a monstrous lead, probably only going to win this game by 10, 12 points, in which they were up by 30, 25 points at one point. This Phoenix Suns team is infuriating, and I get it. I truly do. But you can't fall back into the trap. When it comes to the Phoenix Suns, you have to start treating them like we did DeAndre Ayton. That was great, DeAndre. Now do it again. That was great, Phoenix Suns. Now do it again. Show me that on a consistent night in and night out basis, you can play with that fire in your gut. You can play like you could be eliminated from the playoffs. Because the Suns absolutely can go down this tough 10-0 stretch and beat every single team. But still, I feel like they'll end this stretch under 500 in the 10 teams that they're going to play, the 10 teams that they're already currently playing. I don't expect them to go 10-0. I expect them to go 3-7. Suns fans have to treat this team like they do DeAndre Ayton. That was cool. Do it again. Because this team has proven to us that they cannot consistently, on a night in and night out basis, play with real urgency and play with the fire in their gut. So it only makes sense for us Suns fans to treat them like DeAndre Ayton. That's cool. Do it again. Because we're not falling for it again. We're not falling for the big win against a competitive playoff team and then the very next night be let down when they play the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Suns have to play with real fire in their gut, be willing defenders, and prove to us all that we're all wrong about this team. Because it's incredibly frustrating when they go into Ball Arena, spank the Denver Nuggets, a game in which everyone thought they were going to lose, then the next day lose to the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander-less Oklahoma City Thunder, and then pummel the 6th-seeded New Orleans Pelicans. Because it's just a roller coaster ride with this team. So some quick Arizona Cardinals news. The pendulum keeps swinging back and forth and back and forth. Where the Arizona Cardinals trade back? Will they trade up? Will they stick and pick with Marvin Harrison Jr.? And we are just still weeks away from the NFL draft. We can taste it, but not there quite soon enough. And here's what I want to talk about. There's 70% of the NFL Cardinals fan base that believes stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr. You can't miss out on Marvin Harrison Jr. And then there's the other 30% that said this is a chance for a Cardinals team to restock their roster, fill multiple holes, get maybe a little bit lesser tier guys, but fill in those holes that they need at corner, at defensive tackle, at wide receiver, at tight end, and stick and pick with all those picks that you could get for trading down with any quarterback needy team. And then there's me. There's the guy that has heard, that has seen, that has read that the Arizona Cardinals could trade back and then try to effectively trade back up for Marvin Harrison Jr., for one of the wide receivers that they want. That's ridiculous. That feels like Monty Ossenfort trying to please both sides of the crowd. Pick a side, pick a lane. Because jumping on both sides just doesn't work. I don't agree with this team trading up at all in any circumstance. Unless, of course, it is just a complete gimme. But that doesn't usually happen on the night of the NFL draft. I want the Arizona Cardinals to decide. Either pick Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade back and go get the assets and fix other holes on your team. But pick a side. Don't try to appease both fan bases by trading back, getting picks, and then using those picks to effectively try to trade back in to get whatever guy you want to get in the top 10. It just doesn't make sense. If you're going to pick the guy that you want, pick the guy that you want. Don't effectively ruin your draft plans by trading back and then the guy that you wanted gets selected. That doesn't make any sense. That feels like you're trying to appease both sides of the fan base. Monty Ossenfort needs to pick a lane. He needs to pick the Marvin Harrison Jr. camp, or he needs to pick the stick and trade back camp and go fill multiple other positions on this team. I am firmly of the belief that you should trade back if you can get a historic haul, because wide receivers are always available, because there's much more positions of needs on this team than just wide receiver. Although I get it, wide receiver is flashy, it's fun, and nothing about this team has been flashy or fun over the past 3 or 4 years. So I get it. Fans want a flashy, fun tool to be able to see the masterclass of a wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. every single week. I get it. I don't fault fans for doing that. What I will fault is a general manager trying to appease both sides. So when I see reports that say the Arizona Cardinals could trade back, get a multitude of picks, and then use that capital to trade back in to get whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or another player that they could have just stuck and pick at number 4, that makes no sense to me. Don't try to appease both sides, Monty Ossenfort. Fans are going to be upset either way. Whatever Monty Ossenfort thinks is the best direction of this franchise, that's the direction I want to go. I don't care what Steve in Phoenix says about Marvin Harrison Jr. on his draft board. I don't care what Freddie says in Queen Creek about how much smarter it is to trade back. I care what Monty Ossenfort thinks. And if Monty Ossenfort tries to trade back up for a player that he could have just drafted at the number 4 overall pick and risk that player being gone, that tells me Monty Ossenfort doesn't really think that highly of a player if he would put him in a scenario in which he could get taken and Monty Ossenfort doesn't end up with him. Pick a lane. Pick a side. I don't want to see the Arizona Cardinals trade back and then trade back up. That doesn't make any sense, especially for a wide receiver. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. as much as the next guy, but it is not a premium position of need. Pass rushers before that, cornerbacks before that, interior defensive line is before that. So I get it. Monty Ossenfort is stuck in a real position in which he's going to piss off somebody. But you can't please everyone. So don't try to please everyone, Monty Ossenfort. Pick a side. Don't try to trade back and then trade back up, risk losing the player that you wanted before, lose some of that draft capital that you got from trading back in the first place, and make it harder on everyone. Don't do that. Stick with your plan, stick and pick, and that is what's best for this Arizona Cardinals team. That's what's best. Not what Steve and Phoenix wants or Freddie and Queen Crete wants. It's what Monty Ossenfort wants. And fans will deal with it either way. But don't try to play both sides. Don't try to talk out of both sides of your mouth. Either pick Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade back for a multitude of picks. Don't trade back for a multitude of picks and then try to trade back up to get the guy that you could have already got at number 4. Because that tells me you didn't really think that highly of him in the first place if you're willing to trade him effectively. Other than that, I assume Monty Ossenfort will make the right decision. And fans need to understand that the general manager likely knows what he's doing.